Check this out, Base Samurai here, bringing you another Commander deck tech, and today we are looking at Numot the Devastator. We're in the Jeskai colors, and this is a Jeskai Control type build, but we're going to focus mainly on land destruction. That way our opponents won't have the mana to cast spells or interact with anything that we're doing. And we're going to benefit from lands going to the graveyard ourselves as well. But Numot the Devastator himself, apart from being a 6/6 flyer, which is already very hard to deal with because most opponents don't have a good way to interact with flyers. But whenever Numot the Devastator deals combat damage to a player, we can pay 2 colorless and a red. And if we did, we get to destroy up to 2 target lands. So this is going to be our primary theme of destroying lands, controlling our opponent's board state, drawing lots of cards, because that's what we love doing. So let's get right into this. First up, we do have a couple creatures, and most of them are just going to help us either win the game very quickly or develop a board state after we've destroyed everything, including lands. So first up, we have Grand Abolisher. This is going to prevent our opponents from casting spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments on our turn. Now we have Tomik, Distinguished Advocate. This is a 2/3 with flying. Lands on the battlefield and lands in the graveyard can't be the target of spells or abilities our opponents control, and it's going to lock out our opponents from playing lands from their graveyard after we've destroyed them. So our opponents are not going to have any way of getting these lands back. Next, we have Lightning Angel. This is just a very efficient creature that we're going to use to deal combat damage very quickly. Now we have Sarah Paragon. This is a 3/4 flyer as well. Once during each of our turns, we can play a land from our graveyard or cast a permanent spell with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard. And if we did, that permanent gains, when this permanent is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, exile it, and we gain 2 life. Now we have Sun Titan. This is going to do a very good job at blocking our opponent's creatures, and when it enters the battlefield or attacks, we get to return a permanent from our graveyard with mana cost 3 or less. This includes lands, so if we have lands that were already destroyed in our graveyard, we're just going to get them back with Sun Titan. Now we have a personal favorite of mine with Dream Trawler. This was very good in Standard. It's a 3/5 flyer with lifelink, and whenever we draw a card, Dream Trawler will get +1/+0 until the end of turn, and whenever Dream Trawler attacks, we get to draw a card. Or, if our opponents try to target this, we can discard a card. It'll gain hexproof until the end of turn, then we tap it. And because we absolutely love drawing cards, we have Consecrated Sphinx. And what better thing to pair with Dream Trawler than Consecrated Sphinx? Anytime our opponent draws a card, we can draw 2 cards. This also blocks very well, being a 4/6 flyer. Okay, let's get into the enchantments. Most of these enchantments are going to affect our opponents in many different ways, or allows us to draw cards, stuff like that. And what better one in a land destruction deck than land tax? Every single upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than us, we get to search our library for 3 basic land cards and put them into our hand. Now we have Confounding Conundrum. When this enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card, and then whenever a land enters the battlefield under our opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield, they have to return a land back to their hand. So Confounding Conundrum is going to punish our opponents for playing additional lands. Now we have Price of Glory. Whenever any player taps a land for mana during another player's turn, they destroy that land. So our opponents are going to have to think twice about casting things on our turn. Of course, we have Rhystic Study. Whenever any opponent plays a spell, we get to draw a card unless they pay 1 mana. Always pay the 1. Just to completely neuter our opponent's land base, we have Blood Moon. Non-basic lands are mountains. Now we have Mana Breach. Whenever any player plays a spell, they have to return a land back to their hand. To prevent our opponents from attacking us, we have Propaganda. Each creature a opponent attacks us with, they have to pay 2 colorless for each of those attacking creatures. Similar to that, we have Ghostly Prison. Now, to punish our opponents even more for drawing cards, we have Smothering Tithe. Whenever any opponent draws a card, unless they pay 2 colorless, we get to create a treasure token. Now we have Kismet. Artifacts, lands, and creatures our opponents control will enter the battlefield tapped. Now we have Leyline of Anticipation. This is going to allow us to cast any spell as though it was an instant. And because we have a decent amount of enchantments, we have Sphere of Safety. This is kind of like a Propaganda or Ghostly Prison. Creatures can't attack us or planeswalkers we control unless that controller pays X, where X is the number of enchantments we control. Now we have Fall of the Thran. We're going to destroy all lands. Then Chapter 2, each player may return 2 lands from their graveyard back to the battlefield. This is going to be extremely punishing for our opponents, especially if we have Tomic out, because Tomic will prevent our opponents from having those lands enter the battlefield on their control. Okay, let's get into the artifacts. We have a lot of mana rocks. We're going to be more focused on just destroying lands. That way we can provide as much mana as possible. So we have Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Azorius Signet, Izzet Signet, Boros Signet. We have all 3 talismans. So we have Talisman of Conviction, Creativity, and Progress. Now we have Mind Stone. In case we need to draw a card, we can do that with Mind Stone. Now we have Darksteel Ingot. This one's a little bit better because it's indestructible, so it's going to get around any kind of destroy effect. Of course, we have Gilded Lotus. We can add 3 mana of 1 color with Gilded Lotus. Now we have Gerard's Hourglass Pendant. This has Flash. If a player would begin an extra turn, they skip that turn instead. But where after its activated ability, we're going to pay 4, activate this. We have to exile Gerard's Hourglass Pendant, and then we can return back to the battlefield tapped all artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and lands that were put there that turn. Now, we have to protect Numot somehow, so we have Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. The equipped creature will gain haste and have hexproof. To ensure that all our lands are going to be brought back to the battlefield, we have Crucible of Worlds. That way we can play lands from our graveyard. Now we have Krenko's Buzz Crusher. This one's fun. This is a 4/4 flying with trample. When it enters the battlefield, for each player, we get to destroy up to 1 non-basic land that player controls. And for each land destroyed that way, its controller can search for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Now we have the Elixir of Immortality. This is going to provide a whole bunch of value for us because not only are we going to shuffle our entire graveyard back in, but it's going to shuffle in all the lands that we put into our graveyard on top of gaining 5 life. So this is going to be very, very helpful for us. That way we can continually blow up even more lands every single turn. Okay, let's get into the instants. Most of these are going to be search effects, counter spells, and just ultimately ways to protect ourselves or our board state. So we have Mystical Tutor. This will go and search our library for any instant or sorcery if we really need it, and that card goes on top of our library. Now we have Dawn's Truce. This has kind of an alternate casting cost of gifting a card. You can promise a opponent a gift as you cast the spell, so your opponents can draw a card, and it's kind of like kicker. But You and permanents you control gain hexproof until the end of turn, and if it was gifted, permanents you control will gain indestructible as well. Now we have Arcane Denial, Counterspell, Dovin's Veto, Negate, and Counterflux as our main counterspells. Now we have a fun one. We have Sunder. We're going to return all lands to their owner's hand. Now, a universal one, we have Boros Charm. We can deal 4 damage to target player, or a creature will gain double strike. But more importantly, permanents we control will gain indestructible until the end of turn. But if that's not enough protection, we have Teferi's protection. Until end of turn, our life total cannot change. We gain protection from everything, and all permanents phase out. Now we have Face Reward. We're going to return back to the battlefield all permanents that were put into our graveyard that turn. Similar to that, we have Cosmic Intervention. This has a alternate casting cost called Foretell. So for 2 colorless mana, we can exile this spell face down and cast it for its Foretell cost, which is a colorless and a white, at a later time. If a permanent we control would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield, we exile it instead, and then we return it back to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, let's get into the sorceries. Most of these are going to help us look for very specific spells, and these are going to be our main mass removal spells, whether they be creatures or lands. So we have Ponder. We get to look at the top 3 cards of our library. We can put those back in any order. Then, if we don't like them, we can shuffle. Then we draw a card. Now we have Preordain. We get to scry 2, then draw a card. My personal favorite with Windfall. Each player is going to discard their hand, then draw that many. So, if we returned all lands to our opponent's hands, and then we Windfall, we're just going to get rid of all those lands and whatever other cards our opponents had. This is a very devastating card, especially when your opponents are trying to get back into the game. Windfall just basically shuts that down. Now we have Boom or Bust. We destroy target land we control and a land we do not control. Or, for 6 mana, we can cast the Bust side, and we destroy all lands. But there's nothing more iconic than Armageddon. We're going to destroy all lands. Our opponents absolutely hate Armageddon. But a more recent reprint is Ravages of War. This was originally printed in the Portal 3 Kingdoms set. Now we have access to it again. Now we have Wildfire. Each player is going to sacrifice 4 lands and deal 4 damage to each creature. Now we have Ruination. We're going to destroy all non-basic lands. Similar to that, we have From the Ashes. We're going to destroy all non-basic lands, and for each land destroyed this way, its controller may search for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield. Now we have Catastrophe. We're going to destroy all lands or destroy all creatures. This is kind of like an Armageddon and a Wrath of God mixed together. Now we have Destructive Force. Each player will sacrifice 5 lands, and it'll deal 5 damage to each creature. And when you just want to blow up all the creatures, we have Supreme Verdict. Okay, let's get into the land base. This is a very straightforward land base. So we have Command Tower, Arid Mesa, and Flooded Strand. Now we need the lands to go get. So we have Ragaran Triome, Mystic Sanctuary, Sacred Foundry, Steam Vents, and Hallowed Fountain. We do have Cascading Cataracts. This is a indestructible land, and for 5 colorless mana, we can add 5 mana of any combination of colors. Now we have the Artifact Indestructible lands. So we have Razor Tide Bridge, Rust Vale Bridge, and Silver Bluff Bridge. And what better land to destroy than Flagstones of Troycare? Whenever Flagstones is put into a graveyard, we can search our library for a Plains card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Now we have a couple of colorless lands. So we have Darksteel Citadel. This will add a colorless mana, but more importantly, it's indestructible. Now we have Field of Ruin. That way we can continually target our opponent's lands. Now we have Strip Mine, so we can destroy any land we want. We have 8 plains, 7 mountains, and 7 islands. And that was the Commander deck tech for Numot the Devastator. I really hope you guys enjoyed this Jeskai Control land destruction build. This deck is a nightmare to play against because you just get so far behind so fast when you're playing against this. If you're the one piloting this build, it's a ton of fun. I know it's a little unorthodox to not make friends by destroying their lands, but land destruction has always been a part of Magic for a very long time. And just to see it in Commander, I really enjoy seeing this because I believe land destruction is a very good strategy at controlling Commander games. But let me know in the comments below if you guys have any suggestions on what might improve this deck, or if you just really enjoy it how it is. Let me know. I'll leave the link to the Moxfield deck list in the comments below. But until then, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share these videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.